broader targeting of entire communities, especially in the post 9/11 environment. And it's important to remember that while these sorts of incidents happen, that our communities do have resources that we can turn to. And so now I want to talk a little bit about what those resources are. Nadia, I know that many in the South Asian community often are wondering sometimes whether they should report an incident of bias. Can you talk a little bit about why our community doesn't report, and also why it's important to report?
There are several reasons why the community doesn't report, and this isn't just indicative of the South Asian community, but on a general basis, I think, for those who do experience bias and discrimination. There's definitely fear of retaliation on the part of the person who is actually doing the discriminating. There's fear that they may retaliate in some way that is perhaps not just a comment anymore, but perhaps some degree of violence or something along those lines. There's also just not wanting to make a hassle, not wanting to make a fuss towards the police, to supervisory bodies or anything along those lines, and just sort of wanting to get through the day. And that happens a lot with the immigrant community. The immigrant community often sort of fears wanting to subject itself to more and wanting to sort of demonstrate itself as a community that's being persecuted against or that's being discriminated against. And so there are several reasons why people don't necessarily report crimes. But as you said, it's significantly important to report not just crimes, but just incidents of bias and discrimination. In order for these things to stop, it's important to report these things so that we as community members can educate those who are committing discrimination, and that we as community members can also educate those who may experience discrimination so that they know they can report it to someone so that it can stop.
So a lot of times our communities may not want to rock the boat.
Absolutely.
Right? We may not want to go to the authorities. We may not want to go to the teacher if it's our child. But what I think you're saying is that it's important to do that, to document what's happening.
Absolutely.
To perhaps educate others about our own cultural beliefs, our religious beliefs, and also in some cases because we have rights. And we need to be able to enforce them.
And in many instances, the discriminating behavior is in fact a crime. So it's very important to report that to the police or to some sort of law enforcement authority so that this crime is in fact, enforced and prosecuted against.
So what should someone do, Rajdeep, if they are the victim or they believe that they're the victim of a bias incident? What are the steps that they should take?
Right. At the outset, in an emergency, in any emergency, the most important step is to call the police, dial 911, and report the incident, and to seek medical assistance. Those are the most important steps to take at the outset. After that, it's important to make sure that the crime or the incident is documented in writing. Make sure you record the names and contact information of witnesses, for example. If anything was said to you in the incident or during the incident, make sure to document that, write it down. At the tail end of this process, you should contact a community organization such as SALT, such as the Sikh Coalition, to make sure that they're able to leverage their connections with law enforcement to make sure that you receive the assistance that you are entitled to.
Beyond reporting to the FBI, beyond reporting to police, beyond seeking assistance from community groups, we're also aware that there are laws that exist that actually protect many South Asians who are victims of these sorts of incidents. Nadia, could you tell us a little bit about the local laws in the D.C. metropolitan area that might be resources for South Asians?
Sure. So all three, as I stated, all three jurisdictions, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia, do have laws in place that are there to protect individuals who have been victims of bias-related or discriminating-related crimes. And not just crimes, but just sort of incidents on a general basis. So from a crime standpoint, by virtue of being a victim of a crime, there's obviously the sort of the prosecution end that the police will sort of be involved in. But there's also the potential for individuals to file a lawsuit against the perpetrator, for example, if they chose to do so. There's the need to sort of become a witness in some of these things. And I think what Rajdeep was saying about documenting all of this is very useful in those contexts. When it comes to, I guess maybe workplace discrimination or other incidents of discrimination, there's, reporting, and there's also the ability to file a complaint. And these complaints are often administrative complaints in the sense that they're not necessarily something that you will get money out of. In some instances you can, though. But these complaints will go through sort of like the HR department of some of these offices and also then go to the human rights offices of the different governments that you are necessarily filing in. So Maryland, for example, has a human rights office, and you can file a complaint against an employer, against a fellow employee, for example, a colleague who may be discriminating against you. And it's important to sort of document as much information as you can. have as many details as possible, dates. Were there any other witnesses? Did anyone else see what was going on? Did anyone else experience this? Does anyone else know that other people have experienced this kind of thing? And so documenting that information and reporting it is very useful, and then an investigation will be undertaken by the government, and hopefully they'll make a sort of determination in one's favor.
So we've talked about the different forms of bias and discrimination. We've talked about some of the resources, the laws, the community groups that can be of assistance. And I want to end by asking a question about what our own role is as South Asians. Can you talk a little bit about that, Rajdeep? What can we do as South Asians to address and perhaps eliminate forms of bias and discrimination?
It's a very good question, Deepa. I think all of us have an obligation to be more civically engaged. This is a proactive way of preventing hate crimes and discrimination and school bullying against members of our community. And by civic engagement, I mean showing up to your child's PTA meeting, sending your children to a soccer team and participating in those kinds of activities, participating in local government, showing up to a city council meeting. The important thing for members of our community is to be seen, to be more visible. And once we're more visible, I think we will educate our fellow Americans about our religions and our cultures, and in that way proactively solve a lot of the problems that we're facing right now.
Nadia, what would you say? Would you agree with Rajdeep?
Oh, absolutely. And the Muslim community post 9/11 has really taken that on as well. I think the Muslim community, again, has been the victim of hasty conclusions. And so what many people didn't know is that, already our actions were sort of religiously mandated. A lot of the sort of the giving of charity, all of these different things that we've always done are religiously mandated. And so it's important for us to sort of get out there and inform individuals about our religion. And in the ways that we have gotten involved in terms of, food, donating food and, doing more work at shelters, getting involved locally in government, getting involved nationally in government as well, as there are Muslims in Congress and there are Muslims who are working in Congress these days. It's just as Rajdeep said, it's important to sort of get out there and inform community members about our beliefs, our lifestyle, everything.
I think that what you're both saying is that the more Americans get to know South Asian Americans, Sikh Americans, Muslim Americans, they'll understand that we are vital members of our country's fabric, and that hopefully forms of bias and discrimination can be eliminated. So with that, I want to close this segment of Community Corner here on Darshan TV. Thank you so much, Rajdeep Singh Jolly from the Sikh Coalition, Nadia Ferozvi from the Asian Pacific American Legal Resource Center, for being with us here today and for informing our audience about the issue of bias and discrimination. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing all of you again on next month's Community Corner.